Today, we're going to talk about endoscopic lenses, and more specifically about the new lens from DZO, the ProbeZoom X-TRACT. What is an endoscopic lens? It's a lens that's unique because it's elongated and looks a bit like a sniper rifle. Originally, these lenses were invented to access very narrow and hard-to-reach places, where a standard camera can't go, especially in the medical field. It's important to know that they became popular in filmmaking with the arrival of the Laowa probe 24mm in 2018. At the time, it was a bit of a revolution and we saw tons of content popping up on social media. This opened up a whole new range of possibilities with angles that had never been explored before, especially in tabletop and food and drink advertising. Long before the arrival of the Laowa probe, systems like the Inavision probe and the Optex Excellence were already being used in cinema to get immersive and detailed macro shots. These lenses, although more expensive and less accessible, were highly sought after in advertising and high-end productions. Before talking about the DZO ProbeZoom X-TRACT, it's important to understand what makes these lenses so unique. In addition to being able to fit into very tight spaces, they are essentially designed for macro work. Indeed, their ability to get within just a few centimeters of the subject while keeping sharp focus allows for very detailed and immersive images. One of the most impressive features is their 2x magnification ratio. Basically, this means that the objects filmed appear twice as large as they actually are, which completely changes the perception of scale. A single coffee bean can look like a boulder, a drop of water can seem gigantic, and a breadcrumb becomes a real mountain landscape. Another super interesting point is that these lenses are waterproof. So you can submerge them or pour liquid over them for even more creative shots. That's actually what makes these lenses so interesting in advertising, especially in the tabletop field, because they reveal details invisible to the naked eye and give everyday objects a whole new dimension. So, despite their many advantages, these lenses have one major drawback. Their long and narrow design greatly limits the amount of light that enters the lens. For example, the first version of the Laowa probe had an aperture of T14, which required an enormous amount of light to get a properly exposed image. That's why, a few years later, they released a version with an aperture of T8, but in return, the diameter increased from 2 to 3 centimeters. In most scenarios, that's not a problem. On the contrary, an aperture of T8 means you need less light. That's an important factor when you want to shoot in ultra-slow motion with a very high frame rate, which requires a huge amount of light. Now that we've covered the basics, let's talk about this major new competitor, the DZO ProbeZoom X-TRACT 18 to 28mm T8. Yes, you heard that right. It's a zoom built into an endoscopic lens. DZO sent me the lens a few months ago, so I was able to test it out in real-world conditions, and honestly, it's insane. Quick disclaimer, I'm not being paid to give my opinion, so I'm completely free to tell you what I really think. Let's talk a bit about the strong points. First off, like we just said, it's a zoom lens, and that's a first. It's the first endoscopic lens with a zoom range from 18 to 28mm. At 18mm, it's even wider than the classic 24mm on the Laowa, which lets you capture an image with more context, especially for Super 35 sensors. At 28mm, the angle is tighter, the depth of field is shallower, and you get a really nice, creamy bokeh. The lens is also parfocal, which means it maintains focus even when zooming, allowing for smooth and precise transitions without having to readjust the focus. There's also almost no focus breathing, which is rare for a macro lens and even more so for a zoom. The X-TRACT has really top-notch image quality, with special ASHRAE lenses that prevent chromatic aberrations and keep the color rendering super clean. For example, with my old probe, I sometimes got a slightly worn, almost yellowish look. Here, there's no such issue. The build quality is just insane. The lens is sturdy, and you can feel it right away when you hold it. The rings are really cool, very smooth, and that's honestly great. Since endoscopic lenses are very long and thin, they're often prone to shakes that get amplified at the tip of the lens. With this model, the PL mount and the thicker lens seem to absorb vibrations better. Let's talk a bit about the weak points. First off, as mentioned earlier, the thickness can be a drawback. Where the first Laowa probe was 2 centimeters in diameter, this one is 3. As a result, it doesn't fit as easily into certain tight spaces, like a shot glass or a rolled-up slice of ham. Okay, I admit, not many people run into this kind of problem, but I actually had this issue during my recent shoots. By the way, during the Fleury Michin shoot, it wasn't the DZOFILM X-TRACT, but actually the Laowa Pro 2B, their latest model, which is also 3 centimeters in diameter. The PL mount can be an issue, especially if you have a more standard camera body. With an EF, RF, or E mount, you'll need to buy an adapter ring. In the coming weeks, there should be several extensions coming out, including a periscope version with a 90-degree angle, because yes, you'll be able to swap out the tips, and honestly, that's really cool. Whereas with the competition, you'll be forced to buy the entire set. That said, you'll still have the option to buy the different optics separately if, for example, you only need one or the other. The lens is sold for €3,959, tax included. You can find it at authorized dealers like TRM, Miss Numerique, and so on. In conclusion, this lens is a revolution in its field thanks to its 18 to 28mm zoom, its good light management, and its build quality. It allows you to capture unique shots while being more versatile than its competitors. Feel free to let me know in the comments what you thought of this video. Do you like this format? Would you like to see more videos like this one? I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye.